Hey everybody, I'm Arthur with Innovative Journaling and welcome to our weekly Wednesday journal making workshop. So in this workshop today, we're going to start going into how to make 4-section journals and much bigger ones, and I'll show you what that is. Here's a couple 4-section, here's a 4-section journal. Here's another one. Here's another one, a smaller size. These are all 4-section journals. And we're going to learn to do this today. I'm going to give an introduction to the stitch. And so I'm going to stitch through an actual order that we have in our studio here for a customer and show you how to sew those up. And then here's a 6-section journal. So you see how when that stitch starts getting broadcast over the spine wider and wider, it really looks pretty cool. And the foundation for that is the single section and the 2-section journals. And then I'm just going to show you how to connect up as many as you want. So let's go to the table. And here is the book we're going to start with. And all we really need for this is 2 needles, some thread, the cover. You can see the punch marks on the cover. They're already there. Got it already. This is our logo here. They wanted gratitude debossed right into the cover. And so we did that. And then here are my my sections or signatures already punched out and ready to go, ready to sew in. So that's what we're going to do in this workshop, or in this workshop. It'll give you an intro to the stitch, so the seed is planted into your mind about how to do it. And then in the coming weeks, we're going to build our own. All right. So if you have any comments or questions as I go through this, just feel free to unmute yourself and jump right in and ask them. Okay, because this sewing is second nature to me, so I can just talk and sew, answer your questions all at the same time. So, okay, yeah. So these are end papers, see? And this is we have these, we have we order this by 55-yard rolls that are about what? They look like 4 feet long, 4 feet wide, and 4 feet wide, and 54 or 55 yards, all on a roll. And so it's a tissue back cotton, so it's all renewable, and it's an oatmeal color. That comes from LBS. I think LBS is on your supplier list also for them, so you can get those. But they have all kinds of. I mean, they have so much stuff there. But this is oatmeal tissue back cotton, and you can get it in small quantities in pre-cut sheets or anything. We just cut these on a paper cutter. We roll them over. We actually put a little bit of tape to keep them on there so they don't move around. And then when we're punching our book and sewing it up, so everything stays the same. Yep, can do that right now. Okay, length of thread. So the way we measure thread it's the same for our 2-section journals. 6 times. 1, 2, and you put an inch over on each side. 3, 4, 5, 6, and there we are, the end of the thread. So when you do a 2-section journal, you get one thread for 2 signatures. When you do more than that, each signature has an additional thread. So basically, there's 4 signatures on here. We just take the 4 and subtract 1, and we need a total of 3 threads. So I've already got them pre-measured and cut. There's 1, there's 2, and here's the 3rd one right here. All right, so when we start this, we sew just like we did our 2-section journal. Take the first 2 signatures, and we start to sew those up. So here I'm going to go through and explain this. Let me check to see if anybody else needs to get in. Yep, right there. Okay. All right. So first thing we're going to do, and this is, if you've been coming to these every week, you know how to do this already. And if you haven't, we have replays on YouTube. It's a whole playlist. So the first thing you do is take 1 needle and 1 thread. You're gonna thread your needles on each side of the thread. So you have 1 thread, and see that, and a needle threaded on each side. And we use dull, darning needles. See how I'm just poking on that? It's just a dull needle. Yeah. Right. It looks like this. What? Oh, okay. What was the question again? I mean, right. Okay. So, I would be curious to know what kind of binding, how they bound it. But on these journals, so what the question was is when somebody made a journal and they put a lot of stuff on the pages, and it ended up being like this instead of like this when it was done. And here's the thing: when you hand stitch a journal like this, what will happen is this journal, when you hand stitch a journal like this, you won't have that problem. That's why I was wondering what kind of binding they used on it. If it was a stab binding or more a more traditional binding where the book gets pasted together in a hardcover. On the soft leather covers, what happens when you put a lot of stuff in it, this just gets, okay, so it's rounded like this at the start, but this starts to move out and gets taller and taller, so your journal will actually expand some when you do that. So our journals never have that issue. Okay, to get started sewing, and Carrie, just keep jumping in, or anybody listening, feel free to unmute and just jump right in and ask me a question. I'll answer it while I'm making these things or sewing this one up. All right, so to start, take one of the two signatures and put the needle in, one of the needles in the second hole down, right like that, and then just pull it through and push it through the top hole. So it comes out like that. And this is basically how we just sewed up a two-section journal. That's all I'm doing here is sewing up a two-section journal to start with. The tricky part is connecting them. Same thing in there. And as we start doing all these stitches, they become more complicated and they take more time to sew. I'm not, for some of them, I don't know if 30 minutes will be enough, but so then once you have this is how it'll look. Once you've done that to each one, start in the second hole down, move to the top hole, and then it looks like that. So then what I do is I just take my needles and line them up together, and I pull, and that makes it so everything comes out equal. So I have equal size threads. And then I put them on the book like this, and then I'll just take one of the threads. In this case, I'm just taking the thread from the first signature, and I'm going to match it up so it'll go into the top hole. The threads are coming out of the top hole, so that's how we're going to put it in the cover, like that. And then this thread for the second one, right there, put that into the top hole also. So this is what we end up with. It's right there, just like that. I don't know if you could see that, but there it is. And so now we have these threads coming out the top. Take one of them and just drop it down one hole and put it into the corresponding hole in the cover, or in the signature, in the papers, like that right there. And then pull it taut, and then go down to drop down one hole there, and you'll come out right there. And that's the first one. When I pull the thread, I'm always pulling in the direction that I'm sewing, which is this direction. So I pull that way. I do not pull that way. All right, let's do the same thing with the next thread. Can you get the FedEx door? Someone's at FedEx there. So I push that in the second one, and pop it down into the next hole there, and there we are. So we got this right there. like that. And I pulled this fairly tight. I like this first part tight because I want these two to be tighter. I don't want to see them sag. And then just take our in this case, I'm taking the one on the right, and I'm going to cross over the one on the left here, underneath that thread, and that you don't want to pull really hard on, just taut. And then I'll push it back into the same hole there.
Arthur, your hands are just a little too far away from you in the camera view, so sometimes you go off the top where we can't see.
Oh, yeah, okay. I'm trying to watch myself here. Yeah, okay. So someone asked the question that the person who made the journal that ended up like this, the spine was 2 inches wide, and they asked if it would help if it made the spine wider. Yeah, that's one solution. Then your book is closed in like this with the wide spine at the start, but then when you fill it out, it comes like this. And that's a very traditional way of doing it. I'm assuming that the spine was fixed and stiff, unlike this that it could just roll up with the increased thickness on the foredge of the book. Let me know if that answers your question. And I'm curious, how many here are new, have never been to one of the workshops before? If you could just put a number one for yes in the chat. Okay, here we are. This went through the overlap, crossed over. We like to make them parallel right here. So that's what we do. You can twist it if you want. And then down here into the next hole, like that. And that's done. Okay, and then I'll taut it up, make it taut. All right, then we take the next string, and notice how I switched my hand here. I switched to this one now so I can be working with this signature. And I go over the first one and under the second one. Now, you don't have to do that. I do it because I think it looks better. You can just go over them both or under them both. But I go over the first and under the second, and then here I cross over. I put it under the top thread and pull that a little taut. And then the same thing with the way in the direction I'm traveling, over the first one and under the second. So it looks like that. And then I just put it back into that same hole. And there we are. And I pull it down here taut. And then I pop it back into the next hole. And here we are again. And so basically this is where we basically started. And so then I'm going to just cross over again under these two threads and push it back through that hole and then drop down one. That. Pulling it taut, not tight. If you pull it too tight, it's going to pinch. It'll pinch the spine. And so you don't want that. And then that one's done. I'm going to over and under here. How many are new, Kara? How many? 4 new people. Okay, you guys especially, if you have questions, because I'm going through this pretty fast, just ask. Unmute and ask. Okay, so we crossed over those two. Now we're going to go over and under that one. Come back. There we are there. Drop down the thread right there. And there we have that. Go back in there like we did above. And so basically the pattern repeats itself. So sometimes you might have trouble finding the hole. Just see, you can see my needle here and I can see where that hole is. So I'm just gonna, or sometimes you can just do this to get it in there. And that helps too. I like keeping my threads all parallel. There's that. And we switch threads again and over and under. And then under these two. And then over and under those and just pull it taut, and go back into this hole. There we are. There, and then drop it down again. So you see, it's just an endless cycle of repeating the same thing. Now we're here again. We're going to do the exact same thing. And so you can make the book as long as you want with this stitch, because this particular one is just it just repeats itself. So that's kind of easy. You figure out the pattern, and then you just repeat it. Right, now we're coming up on the end here. I'll show you how to tie that off in a sec. Over and under the threads, hook both of those, go over the first and under the second one there, back in the hole.
Arthur, have you ever played with making an X in that top starter section?
Yeah, I could do that. That's easy. I have.
Okay.
And when you guys make your books, you can make these you could do spacing, you can do different patterns within this pattern. I mean, there's all kinds of things you can do. And we might get into some of that. I might make one with big and small X's next, when we actually make our book. All right, there's one that's done. So what we're going to do here is fold the book over. That's the nice thing about a soft spine. You can just fold it over on itself and it won't hurt it. And I go from right to left and put it through the hole there, and from left to right. And pull it taut. You pull it too tight, you could break your thread, which, I mean, that's really not a big issue at this point with the knot. I go 1, 2, and 3. Now this is waxed linen thread. We sewed a book up with the polyester thread last week, and it doesn't stick as well to each other. So there it is. This is how much you have left over when you do it, 1 inch over on each side approximately when you're measuring your threads. Same with this. Over the first, under the second. And then back again here, coming back over the first, under the second. Pop it in that last hole. And there we are. Make sure that's parallel there. And here we go, here, there. All right, now what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to attach the third signature. And then once that gets attached, you do all of them after that the exact same way. So let's take another piece of thread here. And once again, we want to put 1 needle on each side of the thread. So at this point, what you could do, if you wanted, is you could just take both signatures, both of these, and sew them into these 2 holes the exact same way. And then you'd have 2 rows of X's. But you wouldn't have this. You just have 2 rows. We're going to sew these up and connect all of them together so it looks like this one. But you can take your 2-section journal and you can just keep broadcasting 2 sections across it if you want. It's quicker to sew that way. And I just think this is cooler, so we take the extra time to do it. Okay, so you got your threads all with needles one on each side of the thread. And take 1 signature now, and you're going to put a needle in each side of this. The top one is blown out. That's okay. And this is how it's going to look. 1 needle each side, just like this. And then go inside your book and take the needle on top or the thread on top with the needle, and put that in the top hole of your third signature there, your third hole over, and take this one, the bottom needle, and put it into this third hole down right here. See that? So it's going to come out right there. Get this thread out of the way. Can you see that? How it's coming out right at the third hole down there. That comes out. Okay, so there you go. And now here's how things look, just like this. So pick up this thread, the one that's coming out of the top, and reinsert it into the second hole and push that through the second hole of your signature, right there, like that. And there we go, like that. Pull it taut. Actually, you want this to be, you don't want these things, well, you might, but I don't like it when they sag. And so if you don't pull it tight enough, it's going to sag. And you know, as you sew books, you're going to know exactly what I mean. Okay, this one we're still working with. Drop it down into the next hole. And there you go. We're at that starting point again. So now we're going to take this, I'll take the thread on the right, and I'll just go underneath this thread right there. Pull it taut. And then I will come out on the inside. You can also come out on the on here, but it's easier to sew this way, and it actually it doesn't affect the strength of your cover or anything. So I just always sew it through the cover, and I don't go through the signature. I don't go through here. I just sew it right through there. Okay, so put that through, make sure they're parallel, which they're not. There we go. There. And then drop it down one hole. And same thing here. Go over the first one and under the second. You can hook this thread right here at the top, and then go over the first and under the second there, and put that back in the same hole. Yeah, good. Like that. And here you are in that new signature coming through the middle there. Then just drop it down here, and you're doing the same thing all over again. Can you see the pattern on that? Just put ones in the chat if it's a yes. And if you can't, tell Kara. She'll let me know. Okay, so now we've got these two threads here. Take either one. Take the one on the right, say, and I go underneath both of these. Not one, but both. Oops, and not three either, like I just did there. Go under these two, like that, and then pull it taut. Go back into the inside of the cover here and drop it down one. And then with the needle on the left, over and under, and then hook those two right there like that, and come back and go over the first and under the second, and then push that into the new signature in the same hole. Let's see here. The question was, how long does it take me to get the stitching pattern down? And the answer is, you don't want to know, because by the time I was done with my first book, I had it down. It was just, I see patterns. So this was very easy for me to do. And then I just added my own touch to it. So then you'll come down and push it in the next hole there and come out. I mean, it's just a repetitive pattern. Some people do well with patterns, some people don't. I happen to be one of those that does very well with recognizing patterns. Okay, so now we're on the left side here. Going to cross over and hook that one. Hook both of those threads and push that back through there. Make sure it's parallel. Come on down. And so when we do the last signature, it's going to be the same thing. We're going to start it the same way and sew it the same way. So here now, I'm over the first, under the second, hook these two threads, Continue on down. Push it back through the cover, and then down one more. And then you can just keep that same thread in your hand and then hook the next two, and then back into the cover and down one more. And so that's almost ready to finish. Same deal here. Over and under. Hook these two. Over the first, under the second. Back in. Like that. And then down here. Are you guys all seeing the pattern? 1 for yes, 2 for no. Ooh, someone else is coming in late. All right. And then here on this one, we're done. So we'll tie this off. There's that. Hey, when you cut the tail, make sure you don't cut the the stitch, because if you do, then you got to do it all over again. That's what I would do. I guess you could just tie some more thread onto it. There, and over and under. Oopsie. Did you see what I did there? I split that thread. This one, or no, I didn't split it, but I went under it, and I don't want to do that. I just want to go under this second one over here. And right here. There we are. So there's that. And now I'll just tie this off. Tensioning is an important thing, and it's not something you can really teach. You can talk about it, but until you actually experience the tensioning, that's how you learn it. You just have to feel it. Completely kinesthetic. Okay, you see how we got those 3 on there now. Now I'll add the one more on. We're at like a little over the mark, but I'm going to keep going here. If you need to leave, every week I say this, I try to get the replay out early. I will seriously try to get the replay out by tomorrow on this. So I'm just going to thread my needle up here. Any questions as I go through this last signature? Just unmute and ask. All right, so I got my threads, my needles all threaded up, or my threads all needled up, whatever. And here, I just take both and I just do that. So I'm going to sew this one up fast, okay? I'll sew it at my speed. Joelle does most of the book sewing now, so I probably slowed down some. But and then if you have questions along the way, just hop right in, ask them in the chat, or unmute yourself and ask them.
I just wanted to mention that I'm really glad that I have that little 3 signature book that I bought, because now I can see that when you've got to sewing in the 3rd signature, you indeed did not go back through the papers, but used only the cover for the second part of the X.
You can go back through the papers. That's not a problem.
Yeah,
but
this is nice.
You don't have to, because it's easier to just go on the inside. So there's there and here.
As Rachel was throwing on the chat, well, I had started a sketch club on Long Island, and I taught my fellow sketchers how to basically do a pamphlet stitch.
Mm-hmm.
Once I could see that they were comfortable doing that, then we graduated to the long stitch, and where I showed you guys how I made covers out of the canvas boards. I didn't do any of the more difficult ones until the folks were more comfortable with the simpler ones. I did have one sketcher that insisted on joining the more advanced group, and it really held everybody back. So your best bet while you're working and watching the videos is make sure you do the one signature book first, then graduate to the 2 signatures, then tackle the more involved ones, because I don't, personally, from my point of view, I don't want to see the newbies getting discouraged. It's always better to start off
simple.
slow. Yeah, simple. Even if it's just a paper cover like Rachel did. Don't be ashamed of doing paper covers, because even now I still do a ton. If you could see me pointing behind me, there's paper covers in there. So, and I use the paper covers to paint and sketch on. So don't be afraid to use the paper covers, you know. And I even made one out of as we're watching you, out of a
Right.
pack of playing cards, the box, you know, something really small. But you can use cereal boxes, you can use, you know, Cheetos boxes, whatever, not Cheetos, but Cheez-Its or whatever. But like, you can use boxes and stuff. Just, you know, use what you have around the house before you use the good materials. So once you do that, you're comfortable, then you're not worried about messing up your good supplies. Just my humble opinions.
They're all good supplies.
Exactly.
All right, I'm racing through this just because we're past our time, but you could see how, let's get that baby in there. Here you are. Right there. Got it. You know, there's another stitch I'm going to teach you guys later on. It's uses 3 threads and 6 needles, and it's way more complicated than this. One sec. I'll tackle that question in a second here. And what I was going to say is that, so my kids and I challenged me, or my kids challenged, we were camping, and they challenged me to sew up a book. When I started this business, I'd be sewing books in the car while we were driving and everywhere. And my kids, I said I could sew up the book in 5 minutes. And they said, no, you can't. And so the challenge was on. And so they timed me, and I sewed it up in 5 minutes after I threaded the needles. So, and that's a different stitch I will show you. It's our braided stitch. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that. One sec here, I'll get it. Do you have any what? I do. I'll show you guys at the end of this if you want to see it. It's just like the LePac Junior, except there's no other stuff on it. And so we can reduce the cost on it because we don't have to put webbing on and all these other lash points. We've actually got 3 new backpacks coming out. Okay, to answer your question about the, do I know where to get other smaller leather pieces? You know, you could try Tandy. Tandy's leather isn't as great as what you're going to get from Willett, Moore, and Giles, but you could try them. And then everybody, you know, Hide House in Napa, California, they're going to sell you half or full hides. I don't know a lot of places where you can just get little pieces of leather. You can always get our kits. They have little pieces of leather in them. And I'm thinking of actually starting a makers club where every month we send you a kit with something and we give you leather and all the supplies you need for it. So there it is. This one's going to get shipped now. A square? Yeah, totally. You could totally make a square leather book. We're going to cover the making your own custom sizes in later weeks coming up. So there's this book, and these are nice. They lay flat when open, no matter where you are. You don't have to struggle with them. I mean, right now it's brand new, but once it gets broken in, it's going to be so nice. Okay, that braided stitch. Let me grab that and show you.
I don't know if I mentioned this last week, but I've had my bullet journal cover for a couple of years now. I think it was since the first time you introduced them for the lectern books. But you know, after a while, the leather gets a nice patina to it.
Absolutely. Yeah, totally.
It's like it gets dings, but you don't see the dings. I mean, they almost get like scuffed out.
Well, you can, here, watch this. Watch what I'm going to do here.
It's soft.
Everybody watch this.
Oh, we're going to cringe?
You see that? You see that? Watch what happens to it here. Move the oils around, you know. I mean, I should be doing this to this journal anyway. There it is, right there. And so
it gets like a nice, like almost like a shiny cover. It's so nice how it ages.
Yeah, and so that you could still see that mark in there. I don't know if you could see it on the video, but it's still in there a tiny, tiny bit. As you carry this around, that's just going to go away. I've had a cat scratch my bag up, and it took like about a year, and all the scratches were gone. So here's those two. Here's that other stitch. Here's the braided stitch. I'll switch cameras here, show you. On your right, yeah, you can see the single braid, and on the left, with the fatter one, you can see just a double row of them. This one has 6 sections. This one has 3. This is just the skinny large, and then the large one here that we call. So this stitch takes 3 threads and 6 needles. And when Joelle sews these, she just uses 6 threads and 12 needles and sews both rows at once. I don't do it that way because it's just like you got threads going all over the place. But she does, she's a weaver, so she's used to all this thread stuff. Anyway, any last questions? Any last questions before we go?
I wanted to mention that if you have a leather shop in town that makes things like belts and sandals and stuff like that, sometimes they have scraps.
Oh yeah, that's a great idea. Any other leather crafters that'll sell you things? We sell leather scraps, but none of them are big enough to make a journal. I mean, a big journal. We had this discussion after I turned off the recording last week about all of our paper scraps and stuff, and I'm very much going to do something with that. And Gina, you know what I was thinking of doing with you, Gina? Just sending you a bunch, and you can record and all what you make with them. Ooh. And that. So I thought of doing that too, but I haven't talked to you about that yet. And so yeah, that's it. Any last questions? Did we get the person who had the question about the book get going wide like this? You know, when they put a bunch of papers inside. Did we answer your question to your satisfaction? Did that help you at all? Yes, no, is she still here? Or he?
I think that was
okay.
Jenny.
Oh, good, good. Okay, yeah. Hey, if ever you don't get a question answered like to your satisfaction, just keep on asking and you know, unmute and chime in so we can have a discussion. So because it's hard for me to know if
I learned a lot.
Good.
I really appreciate it. Thank you.
We have a so we used to do these photo books, and they had 4x6 sleeves in them. And when the book started, it was like this thick. And when you put papers in all those sleeves, it got to be literally this thick, and everything stayed flat in the book. It's in the back room, and I have to go look for it, so I'm not going to bring it out. Maybe I'll do that next week. But having a soft leather cover is just awesome because it will just at the spine it will expand, and it'll be very cool. You might want to make the edges a little longer, a little wider for the cover, but that's it. Okay, any last questions?
I just wanted to mention about your thread scraps.
These?
Yeah.
What about them?
I made some paper ornaments for my Christmas branch this year, and I used those as the hangers.
Oh yeah. That's you guys should be over here where I am teaching all this stuff. What? Oh, could you go grab it? Where is it? Is it, I'm gonna tell I'm gonna turn off the recording now, and then we could stay on and Kara's going and getting the backpack we just did. But anyway, thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you all next week when we continue on making our own 4-section journals.
Thank you.